Rick Hendrick explains why he signed NASCAR's latest charter proposal and also confirms Alex Bowman will be in the 48 next year, so folks can finally stop speculating. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Rick Hendrick of Hendrick Motorsports had some interesting comments on last week's charter drama. Sounds like the constant back and forth eventually wore him down, but first, it's fitting that we would talk about Hendrick Motorsports in this video because look at what showed up in the mail today. I grew up playing with slot cars, so I was thrilled when Carrera sent me their latest Hendrick Motorsports branded slot car set. I'm holding the Watkins Glen set that comes with obviously Kyle Larson and William Byron. There's also the Talladega set that features Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman. I'm a NASCAR guy, so immediately when I opened the package, I had to make an oval, or basically a mini Indianapolis. Take a look at the cars. The decal work is extremely detailed. It almost looks like you're racing a couple die-cast cars out there. I had to start small with this track, but I'm super excited to build more elaborate things with these Carrera sets. Head to CarreraSlots.com to check out even more. I'll also put the link to these sets specifically down in the description below. That was the fun stuff. Now let's get down to serious business. Rick Hendrick was made available to reporters yesterday and of course was asked why Hendrick Motorsports chose to sign NASCAR's latest charter proposal. Hendrick said, quote, "I think we worked really hard for 2 years and it got down to you're not going to make everybody happy. I was just tired. Not everybody was happy, but in any negotiation, you're not going to get everything you want. And so I felt it was a fair deal, and we protected the charters, which was number one. We got the revenue increase. I feel a lot of things we didn't like we got taken out, so I'm happy with where we were." Interesting to hear Hendrick call it a fair deal. A lot of scrutiny over that word earlier this week. Brad Keselowski, who also signed the deal, said he wasn't sure exactly what a fair deal truly meant. But Rick Hendrick sounds fairly positive with the direction of this new agreement, and his comments echo fellow team owner Justin Marks' comments that he made to Sirius this last week. Of course, Justin Marks owns Trackhouse, another team that did sign the latest proposal. This is what Justin Marks said. "Me, personally, as we've had these conversations, I was anticipating the day that NASCAR would come and say, this is it, we're done, we've addressed all these issues, and you know where we won't move, we've agreed on 90% or 75% of it, so it's time to get this thing done and start building our future together." Rick Hendrick says he was tired. It sounds like Justin Marks knew there needed to be a deadline eventually. This had gone on long enough. He was ready for this moment. Those comments are similar, both very interesting. I look for patterns. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing many. Trackhouse and Hendrick don't have a whole lot in common. Hendrick Motorsports is an older team, one of NASCAR's most successful. They signed the deal. Trackhouse is much younger. They too signed the deal. At the same time, 2311, team that's the same age as Trackhouse, did not sign the deal. Both Trackhouse and Front Row are expanding to add a third charter next year, yet one signed and one didn't. We talk all the time about the teams being different. Everyone has their own wants, their own needs. I want to dig deeper into that for a second because the closest thing to a pattern that I can find is that you'll notice all of the historic superpower teams sign the deal. The owners who've dealt with the France family the longest, the owners who've done the most winning over the past decade or two or three. I'm talking Rick Hendrick, Roger Penske, Joe Gibbs, throw in a Richard Childress perhaps, maybe a Jack Roush. They all seem to agree that enough is enough, and they all signed NASCAR's charter agreement last week when given an ultimatum. They aren't looking to rock the boat like 2311. Why? Because this system, as flawed as it may be, and they would agree it's flawed, has allowed them to collect dozens and dozens of trophies and championships. And for rich guys like Rick Hendrick and Roger Penske, that's the only reason they race. They've built these massive, successful operations that have thrived on the racetrack under this current system. They're more worried about protecting what they've built than trying to push and create something that might actually help their competition. Now, full transparency, I didn't come up with this theory all on my own. I was listening to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour podcast, podcast, and he said this, which is what got me thinking. Harvick was talking about 2311 sort of being the black sheep of the group, if you will, and said this, quote, "You're dealing with a lot of legacy owners that have been here a long time. You have these relationships with Richard Childress and Jim France and Rick Hendrick and Roger Penske and Jack Roush. Whether you're the ringleader representing all these guys, they've been here a long time. In the end, these guys are all going to have conversations." That's what got me thinking about this. Remember early in the year, the negotiating committee? The Race Team Alliance intentionally tried to keep some of these legacy owners out of these meetings. Instead, they sent younger guys like Jeff Gordon, like Dave Alpern, Curtis Polk, Steve Newmark. But there were reports early in the year that NASCAR was trying to sort of go over their head and talk to Richard Childress and Rick Hendrick, the classics. Look, over the last 20 years, Rick Hendrick, Joe Gibbs, and Roger Penske have won 17 NASCAR Cup Series championships combined. Stewart-Haas managed to get 2, although they had a very close alliance with Hendrick at the time. Furniture Row got 1, but of course they were closely tied to JGR. But also, after this year, neither Stewart-Haas nor Furniture Row will exist in their current form. So that just shows you the stranglehold Hendrick, Gibbs, and Penske have had over the sport on the competition side. Why would these juggernauts risk falling on the sword to try and help some of their mid-sized competition like a 2311 or Front Row? I guess that's just my theory. We talk about teams having different agendas. I think big teams like Hendrick, Penske are more comfortable with the status quo. Take your revenue increase, you'll make it work from there, than some of these newcomers. Denny Hamlin's, Michael Jordan's, shoot, even Bob Jenkins, who's been around a while. Front Row is a new Ford key partner. They're really starting to expand, get competitive for the first time. They too, I think, are striving for something better. All this talk about leverage, the teams have not been unified. This is me attempting to get to the bottom of why. Why specifically aren't the teams unified? Why are Rick Hendrick and Roger Penske and Richard Childress willing to sign NASCAR's ultimatum? Why did 2311 and even Front Row push back? That's just my theory. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Another interesting comment from Rick Hendrick. There were a few interesting comments during yesterday's press conference. It was about the Larson Indy Charlotte double, but of course he was asked other things. I found this in the Associated Press. But Rick Hendrick said that if somehow 2311 and Front Row are able to negotiate better terms, Rick Hendrick expects those terms to apply to all the teams, even those who are already signed. He said this, quote, "I think NASCAR, if they change anything for those two teams, that will go across the board. I'm pretty sure that would be the right thing to do because we, the teams that signed at the deadline, and then they make another deal a little bit better somewhere, that would be wrong." I mean, of course he would feel that way, but I'm not sure that's exactly how this works. 2311, Front Row, taking a huge risk by holding out. They called NASCAR's bluff. They're the ones doing the fighting. If they get a better deal, then good for them. You had your chance to stand in solidarity and didn't. I don't know, that's on you. I say that, but it's probably more realistic that any change would go across the board. NASCAR is a competition. One of the things that 2311 is lobbying for is, a greater say over rule changes. It would be unfair for one or two teams to be involved in those meetings and other teams not be. So I think Rick Hendrick ultimately is right, but it's rich coming from the guy who, his team kind of took the easy way out. So we'll see what happens. I still wonder what 2311 and Front Row's ultimate goals are. Like I said, they have little to no leverage unless maybe they take NASCAR to court. NASCAR doesn't want to go through all that, and Michael Jordan has deep pockets and connections. I mean, maybe then they would begrudgingly accept some of 2311's demands, but I still think that's a long shot. It's the only leverage 2311 and Front Row have, though, because 13 other teams already signed the agreement. So anyway, one final topic I teased at the beginning. Rick Hendrick also confirmed to Jenna Fryer of the AP that Alex Bowman will drive the number 48 next season. This rumor exploded last week. Alex Bowman himself said he doesn't believe there's any truth to it. We talked about that on the show. Now, in case there was still any doubt, here's the guy who writes the checks, who signs the paperwork, saying that no, there is no truth to it. Bowman will be in the 48 next season. Not surprising. Bowman has had a solid year, got that win, is in the playoffs, is in a pretty good points position to maybe sneak into the round of 12, which would be nice. Ally likes him. Alex Bowman still has 2 years left on his current contract. Sure, the team may buy him out of one of those years, but Bowman has done enough to keep that ride at least for 2025. So, going forward, I still believe that Ally's connection to Hendrick is honestly deeper than their connection to Bowman. Not saying they don't like Bowman, I'm just saying they are deeply connected to Hendrick. So if Bowman were to struggle next season, sure, perhaps they could explore other options, but that's a year down the line. That's months from now. Right here, right now, Bowman will be in the car next season. He's earned that opportunity. I hope he does well. This rumor, though, still buzzing the past few days on social media. Hopefully this quiets that discussion, at least for the next 6 months. Can we go 6 months at least without another wild Alex Bowman rumor? I think this has bought him at least 6 months, right? 6 months of serenity. Let's hope for it. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, y'all. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below on Bowman, on Rick Hendrick's reasoning behind signing the charter deal. Do you buy my theory that some of the super teams are comfortable holding on to their super team status? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. That's going to do it, folks. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new to the show. And a big thank you to my very generous Patreon supporters, as always. I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.